Welcome to the Immigrant Finance Podcast, a show dedicated to everything money, online business, and immigration, because immigrant families deserve to build generational wealth too. I'm your host, Adina, social entrepreneur, an immigration attorney, and financial educator and coach for immigrant families. I created the Immigrant Finance Platform with my husband, Mauricio, who immigrated to the U.S. 8 years ago after we struggled through the whole process of trying to figure out finances as an immigrant family alone. We wanted to share what we learned about building wealth with others along the way and created the Immigrant Finance School Group Coaching Program, where we teach immigrants and their families like you how to manage their money, get started investing, and build online businesses in just weeks, all with group accountability and support. Our clients have been able to get started investing and develop lifelong plans to build generational wealth regardless of their immigration status, actually launched an online business they've been dreaming of starting for years, bring in enough income to leave a job with a shitty boss, and book up their calendar for the rest of the month just after announcing their new coaching business. I'm coming to you with a new show several times a week with stories about online business lessons, money and mindset insights, and guest interviews to help you become financially empowered. Each episode will switch between personal finance and online business topics. Now let's get to this week's episode. Hi everybody, this is Adina from Immigrant Finance. I hope you are doing super well and having a great day, whether it's morning or night you're listening to this, middle of the week, weekend. I just hope everything is going well for you. And I am so excited to be sharing with you today, episode 60 of the Immigrant Finance Podcast. This is a really, really big milestone for us. The reason is there's a saying in the podcasting world that you don't find your voice until episode 60. And all the episodes before then are really just kind of experimenting and kind of being in the dark, trying to find your way, trying to figure out what the hell you're doing, feeling really insecure, having a lot of fears, all of that. And so I learned that before starting the Immigrant Finance Podcast, and knew that in the back of my mind going into it, that just need to try to make it to episode 60, just need to get there. This is going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. I'm going to feel very uncomfortable doing this, right? But let's just see if we can get to episode 60 and see what happens. So here we are. And so I wanted to talk more about that whole process, share with you all some highlights from the podcast so far. This episode is going to conclude our first season. So I'll be going over some of the highlights of our guest speakers in the first season, telling a little bit more about the story of starting the podcast and how it's been going, and also just speak generally about reaching goals and pursuing goals, because as I mentioned, I had this goal to just make it to episode 60 and see if we could do that, right? And that has not been easy. It's been really, really challenging, and I'll talk more about that. But before I go any further, I just wanted to introduce myself for anyone who is new to the podcast or new to the immigrant finance community. If you haven't listened to all prior 59 episodes, don't worry. We're glad to have you here. We're glad to have you joining this amazing community. I'm Adina again, and I created the Immigrant Finance Platform with my husband, Mauricio, who is an immigrant from Ecuador. He came to the U.S. about 8 years ago. We met in Ecuador, and we went through the whole journey of him moving to the U.S. and trying to get on his feet. And during that process, we had a really hard time with finances together, trying to figure out what he could do and not do as an immigrant. We didn't know basic things like if he was able to open a bank account or a credit card, or even invest or take out a mortgage, or, do things to be able to grow financially. And it was very stressful and anxiety provoking for us. There was no information out on the internet really, or in the personal finance books about what immigrants could do with their finances. And we felt very alone. So we started blogging about this topic of finances and immigration and what immigrants can do and not do. In January 2018, to start sharing what we had been learning, we went through several years since he immigrated in January 2013 of trying to navigate this and figure out the financial system as it applies to immigrants. I'm also an immigration attorney in my day job. I work at a nonprofit. I do impact litigation to try to improve the law for broad groups of immigrants. I've been doing that now for about 6 years as an attorney, and working in immigrants' rights and advocacy for much longer than that, over 10 years. Part of what motivated me to start Immigrant Finance, in addition to our personal experience with finances as an immigrant family, was also being an immigration attorney during the Trump administration and just seeing the horrible attacks and having to fight the horrible attacks on the immigrant community and being in such a defensive posture, and so much violence and hatred happening. It just, killed me in my soul. Could go on and on about that, but starting Immigrant Finance for me has been a way to more positively empower the immigrant community, regardless of what your status is, regardless of where you're from, regardless of your background, regardless of what the immigration laws say you can do and not do. Becoming financially empowered is something that everyone can do. All immigrants can do, regardless of their status. And that can be really, really life-changing. I've seen in my clients' immigration cases and my work as an immigration lawyer how much of a difference having your finances in order can give on many areas of an immigration case and in people's lives. One of the most obvious examples is just being able to pay for an immigration lawyer. There's no public defender in the immigration system, so anyone who can't afford a private attorney has to represent themselves in immigration court. So that can make a huge difference if you have savings to be able to pay for an immigration lawyer, because there's studies showing people can be 6 to 10 times more likely to win their case if they have one. So that's a whole nother tangent, but just wanted to give a little background about where we come from. Basically, our goal and mission in Immigrant Finance is we just want to see lots and lots of immigrants financially empowered. We think that that is a way that we can make a really big change and impact in the society, because being more financially empowered, being more financially stable, building wealth gives you more options and choices. And there's only so much we can do in terms of the legal system. Like I said, I spend a lot of my time in my day job fighting the legal system and trying to improve the law, but it's very difficult to do that. And so finances is a way you can take control and build power regardless of your situation and have more options. So that's a little bit about Immigrant Finance. Again, if you're new, we welcome you to our community. We have a lot of different community spaces that we would love for you to participate in and get to know other people in this community, give advice, ask questions, share resources, receive support. The main way to do that is our community Facebook group, which is free to join. It's on Facebook just at, I'm just pulling up the link. Let's see. Immigrant Friend. It's been a while since I pulled up the link. It's I believe it's facebook.com/immigrant finance / hold on. Give me a second. I'm just pulling it up. All right. Facebook.com/group/immigrant finance. And the group is called Immigrant Finance, Building Generational Wealth for Immigrant Families. I do a free live training in there once a week. And you can also check out all the prior trainings. If you go to the tab guides, you'll see several trainings on managing money, investing, increasing income, starting online businesses that are available for folks in our community. Other ways you can engage is through social media. We're really active on Instagram and Facebook, right? Listening to this podcast and sending in questions. We are going to be trying to do a new feature where you can actually send in a question to us through Anchor. And at the website anchor.fm/immigrantfinance/message, the link will be below in the comments. And you can just share some feedback, share a question. They're recording, and we can then share it in the episodes, and I'll be able to answer whatever questions you all have and others can benefit. So lots of ways to engage. Welcome again. And now I wanted to jump into the story of starting the Immigrant Finance Podcast. So I've always loved podcasting. I feel like we are in a day and age where we can learn almost anything now. There's so much free information out there on the internet, and people are learning far more in places like YouTube and on podcasts than they're learning in school, arguably. And that's been a lot of how I started my personal finance journey and learning about finances was just listening to podcasts. So I've always been a big fan. I kind of in the back of my head always wanted to have a podcast, but I don't think I knew it or would admit it to myself. And then I had a mentor who challenged me during the COVID quarantine to start a podcast. And I really resisted. I was like, oh my God, that's something kind of on my bucket list, but I didn't think I would be able to get to that for like 2 to 5 years from now. It's kind of like thinking about writing a book. I'd love to write a book, but feels like that's years away to be able to do that. And this mentor really challenged me, and he was just like, why not? Podcasting is so accessible to start. Anyone can start a podcast. It's free to start one, especially on platforms like Anchor. I believe another good one I've heard about I think it's called Buzzsprout, but it's free to record and to disseminate episodes and just speak and share your mind, right? And so this person challenged me. I was absolutely terrified. What I did was I reached out to the network of alumni we have from our signature group coaching program, Immigrant Finance School. And we have a group chat, alumni group. And I reached out and was like, oh my God, this is something I've been challenged to do. I feel like I have to do it. I'm terrified. I'm so scared, but I'm going to do it, and everyone gave their support. It was really encouraging. And that's how I started. And most things in my life that I've been able to do that have been successes or accomplishments, it's been because I've been fucking terrified and wanting to throw up while I'm doing it or feeling super nervous. And I've been fortunate that I learned at an early age in my early 20s that there's a difference in different types of fear. So if you have the type of fear that's like, really bad feeling in the pit in your stomach, I don't have a good feeling about this, like that kind of thing, that's usually more about needing to listen to your gut and your intuition, and that something may not be a good move. But if it's the other kind of fear where you're like scared and excited, some people call it scared sighted, and you have some like excitement about it, but you're afraid, that means more that you're growing and expanding and going outside of your comfort zone. And that's usually something that you want to be pursuing, because the people who are most successful and growing and making change and impact on others are usually in that space where they're constantly trying to go to the next level and trying to grow and go outside of their comfort zone. So that's just something to think about to distinguish the types of fears. And that's sort of what I applied with this. I tried to figure out which fear it was, and it was the scared sighted fear, going outside my comfort zone. It was not something I saw myself being able to do, but I took the challenge and just went for it. And usually how that works for me, which is what happened in this case, was I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this, but let me just play around a little bit and just see what the platforms are and learn more. And I started looking up Anchor, which is what we use, and Zencastr, which we use to record, both free, and just kind of made some accounts, one thing after another. And that's a good strategy as well if you ever want to start something, is just taking those baby steps and seeing what the options are, what it would entail, and then you can make a more informed decision after that. So the first episode came out on December 18th, 2020, right in deep into COVID quarantine. I kind of was like, well, if now is not a good time, when is a good time? We can't go anywhere. Might as well give it a shot and see what happens. And I tried to really take the approach of just kind of like playing and being messy, which is what I teach to the students that we work with in our Immigrant Finance School program and also our online business accelerator program for folks who are starting online businesses. It's really important to just get started and be willing to be messy so that perfectionism doesn't hold you back from getting started with any challenge like that in life. So that's what I did, just started being messy. If you listen to the first episode on our immigrant finance story, you can learn more about Mao and I's experience when he immigrated here and the financial challenges we went through in more depth. And you can also hear me talking about how scared and nervous I am to start a podcast. I was shaking when I recorded that episode, so that I still can't listen to it. I don't know if I ever will. But now we are 6 months in. So that was December 18th, 2020. I'm recording this June 28th, 2021. We're 6 months in. Since then, we have had a lot of really amazing guest speakers I'm going to highlight in a moment, who I've just had incredible conversations with and have provided a lot of insights and value to this community on the podcast. And we have had 2,499 people listen to the episode since starting. So it's super exciting. If you're listening right now, thank you so much for taking the time to listen and to be part of this community. We really, really appreciate it. And we're here for you. If there's anything we can support you with, you can always reach out. And we also want to hear your feedback on the podcast. What have you been enjoying? What kinds of episodes are resonating the most and topics? What do you want to hear more about? What do you want to hear less about? What is not resonating? And, just reach out. We really want to hear from you. You can always DM us on Instagram at Immigrant Finance, email us at helloimmigrantfinance.com, or send us a quick voice note on anchor.fm/immigrantfinance/message. So lastly, I'm just going to give a quick wrap up of some of the amazing guest speakers that came on during season 1 and highlight their episode numbers in case you missed any and want to check them out. So let's see. The first guest we had was my friend Elena Hernandez Sixtos in episode 6. She is a friend of mine who is in the online business world. We connected in a program we did together several years ago. She is a confidence coach and she's the founder of Sixtos PR. Absolutely amazing person. And she gave some really vulnerable advice on, being raw, starting an online business, being raw, being vulnerable online, and her immigrant story. By the way, all of our guests have shared their immigrant story, whether it's their personal story or the family member's immigration story or a connection they have to immigration issues. Every episode starts with that. So there's a lot of really good stories you can hear for these guests as well that I'm covering. The next guests we had were, it was Alejandra and Raylene of Latinas Talk Dinero. And they spoke about their family's immigration stories as well and building the Latinas Talk Dinero. And it was a really great episode. They talked a lot about building community and their intentions for Latinas Talk Dinero. And I think it was an awesome episode. And that was episode 10. Next, in episode 13, we had the founder of Indig Money, which is a personal finance platform for folks in the indigenous community. The founder of it is from a Oaxacan family, and she spoke about the importance of financial empowerment for indigenous immigrants. Is a really important topic. We then had Mayor Vallas, who is a CPA, which is an accountant. He is from Fincanoso, and he came and spoke to us about business taxes for new business owners in episode 14. That was a great episode if you're thinking about starting a business or you've already started one and you're not really sure where to start when it comes to like setting up an LLC and figuring out what taxes you have to pay on business income. I would really recommend that episode. Episode 16 was with a friend of my best friend. Her name is Erica Johnson. She is a co-founder of a big startup out in the San Francisco tech world. And she talked about she provided some really great value on the importance of investing in your business in order to grow your business. And we also spoke about this theme of, being scared, going outside your comfort zone to grow and start businesses. In episode 18, we had Cesar Ponce of Hustle to Passive. Cesar had a really compelling story he shared about his mom being an immigrant business owner and, all the entrepreneurship lessons he learned from her and watching her in her shop growing up and how he has applied that to his entrepreneurial endeavors. Episode 20 was with Lucy King of Viva La Budget and Finance. Lucy is just a very inspiring person. She, came to this country and climbed her way up the corporate ladder and she spoke about, starting with cleaning rooms in hotel to then managing the hotel and all of the business and budgeting skills she has developed through that and the work she's now doing in her finance platform Viva La Budget to teach women, specifically Latina women, about budgeting and finances. In episode 23, we had Fijay Adum of Immigrants Thrive. Loved talking to her as always. We spoke about social entrepreneurship, which is about creating businesses that make a social impact. And she talked about all of her experience doing that in Nigeria and then her experience having to come to the US to seek asylum and how she has, in just a couple years already, applied her entrepreneurial skills to start new businesses here in the US and teaching others how to do it. And she is a very soulful person. I would really recommend that episode as well. All the episodes have been amazing. We had an episode 24, Danny, who was one of the students in our Immigrant Finance School program, spoke about his experience in the program and specifically about like going from frustration, really feeling left out of the system to, building financial confidence, becoming financially empowered. In episode 25, we had May Perez, who is also an alumni of our Immigrant Finance School program. And she designed the Immigrant Finance logo when we changed the logo a couple months ago. She spoke about her immigrant story and her design work and the whole story of redesigning the logo and that whole journey we went on together to do that. In episode 28, we had Leslie and Renee of Businessito, who are both, have been entrepreneurs since they were children and talk about their experiences. One of them being the child of immigrants, another being an immigrant himself, and how important failure and growth has been in their journeys and giving back and what they're doing to help others in the Latino community learn about starting businesses based on their experiences. In episode 29, we had one of the alumni of our program, Fabi of Wholesome Fabi, who talked about wellness. She's in the wellness health and food space, and she talked about how she applied that with us to learn about wellness and finances and how connected those are. And she speaks about her immigration, finance, and business journey. And let's see who's next. Episode 32 was with Victor of Our Journey with Less, and he had a really powerful episode about real estate investing and starting with Airbnb rentals, starting with the NACA mortgage to get his first home with low to no money down, and his journey really expanding those assets to have multiple real estate properties to be building wealth for his family, and how how you can do that too, regardless of your immigration situation. In episode 34, we had Yasmin of Mrs. Pantry Chef and Katharina Cleaning. She is also a student of ours from the Immigrant Finance School program, and has been growing her business with us through our online business accelerator program. And she spoke about her finance journey and going from, really wanting to invest and also invest for her children's college and not having a plan and not knowing how to do any of that to now, having all the best bank accounts and credit cards and investment accounts open and having a very clear financial plan, what to be doing on her own. In episode 37, we had Jen from DACA Girls Saving Dollars. She spoke specifically on finances for DACA recipients and the unique circumstances that DACA recipients have to go through when it comes to finances, from all of those fees to apply for DACA and the DACA renewals, the immigration lawyers, not being able to travel and all of that, and provided a really good insight into that experience for others to learn more about and bring more awareness to that. Episode 41 was with Kevin Munoz of Latin Americaneo. He spoke about building financial power through investing and how important that is for the immigrant community. He has some really powerful beliefs and insights about the political system and why it's so important for immigrants to be building power through their finances. In episode 44, we spoke with Nina, who's also a former student in our Immigrant Finance School program. She started 2 online businesses in the program, and she was able to really work on shifting her financial mindset from growing up in poverty and dealing with a lot of scarcity to tapping more into the abundance that's available for her. And I think that's been really important for her as she goes into medical school and becoming a doctor and building her businesses for her to support her family as well. In episode 48, we had another episode with Fijay of Immigrants Thrive. That was a recording of a live we did together. We go a lot further into online business and the mindset stuff of starting a business and all of that. In episode 51, we had special guest Victoria Mate of the Shot of Truth podcast. She is absolutely brilliant and had a lot of very important insights to share about the immigration system, the trauma that happens in the system, and the collective healing that is possible and that she's working to build through her platform. In episode 55, I skipped one. Episode 53, we had Yelse Bahena, who spoke about how undocumented people can get credit cards and grow credit scores. She talks about her story, learning the hard way when it comes to credit, and then what she's doing in her classroom as a teacher to be helping more people learn about managing credit and credit cards and finances, particularly in the immigrant community. Episode 55 was with Flavia Cornejo of Latina Traveler. She spoke about traveling, some of the finances of being able to travel and how to plan, and also mental health and how finances and traveling kind of relate to mental health, and all these topics go together. It was a really fascinating discussion, and she has so much to share on these really important topics and why it's powerful. She spoke a lot too about why it's powerful for Latina women in particular to be, going after what they want and doing things they desire, like traveling. In episode 57, we had Miguel Arjona Rodriguez, who spoke about life insurance for immigrants. This is a topic I really wanted to cover for a long time, and was very grateful to have Miguel share his expertise as a licensed life insurance agent and someone who's worked in that field, and has also had some critiques of life insurance. And we spoke all about his journey and some concerns I have about how life insurance is marketed to the immigrant community and how to kind of watch out for that. In episode 59, the last guest from season 1 of the Immigrant Finance Podcast, we had our wonderful guest Rashid of Progressive Migrants, who is a mental health specialist, and he spoke about mental wellness and financial mindset for immigrants. He is from a family of immigrants, and he also works in the mental wellness space with the immigrant community, and had some really, really powerful things to be sharing that really blew my mind about mindset when it comes to finances and all of the possibility and abundance that is available to all of us, right? That we can embrace and access. So that's an overview of all the guests. Whew, I'm tired. That was a lot of episodes we covered with guests. Thank you so much to each of these guest speakers for giving your time generously and your expertise and sharing your experiences and knowledge and insights with our community. I know I learned a ton from these individuals, and I hope that all of you listening have as well. If you have missed some of those episodes, go ahead and check them out so that you can learn from the wonderful insights that they have provided. And then lastly, just to wrap up, as I mentioned earlier, we welcome you to send over a voice message through the Anchor platform so that we can get questions you all have and be able to feature you on the show. So what you can do is just go to anchor.fm/immigrantfinance/message, shoot us a quick voice note there, and we will be able to replay it on the show, and I can respond and answer questions that you have, and that will hopefully benefit others who might have similar questions. So that is the wrap up of season 1. Thank you all so much. If you have any suggestions, ideas for what you want to hear in season 2, what we could do things differently, how we can serve this amazing community in a better way, please let us know. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen. We really appreciate it. Take care. Thanks so much for listening to the Immigrant Finance Show. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already, and leave us a review so we can reach more people to help. Also, did you know we started a free Facebook group for immigrant families who want to build generational wealth? We're doing free monthly trainings covering everything from investing to online business. Plus, you will be in there with a network of other inspiring members of our community. Make sure to join us at facebook.com/groups/immigrantfinance, and we'll see you there.